got a lot of Nintendo news to get into, and yes, I'm saying Nintendo news. Most of it is Nintendo Switch 2, and we got some interesting stuff to talk about with that, but we can't ignore the Nintendo news because we have some updates on some lawsuits and other things going on, updates on games coming to Switch 2, and so much more. It's a pretty packed episode today, so I want to thank all of you guys for being here, and if you're enjoying this show, I would appreciate if you would subscribe to the channel. We're on our road to 150,000 subscribers, and as a thank you to the community, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 as well. You can head down to the pinned comment or the link in the description, and I wish everyone luck. We'll draw the winner about a week before Switch 2 comes out on June 5th. All right, let's go ahead and dive right in because we got a lot to get into. The first thing is, look, we should have talked about this yesterday. I missed it, so we're going to get to it right away today. And that is this new ad being ran by Nintendo for Nintendo Switch 2. And this mostly because I love the nostalgia here. This deals with Paul Rudd, who, if you guys don't know, he was way back in the day with like the original NES commercials. He didn't have a speaking line, but you know, the now you're playing with power and all that stuff happened back in those era of commercials and ads. So watching him come back to play Mario Kart World and show off, obviously, the camera functionality and all this stuff, and pretty much wearing the same stuff he wore back then. And they made it into one giant joke. So I find this to just be clever. I'm glad Nintendo went in this way. It's like a, hey, here's a not so serious advertisement for Mario Kart World that's using some famous people. I really enjoy it. Obviously, I know a lot of people were expecting like a Sabrina Carpenter music ad or something going on, and maybe that's still a thing, or maybe that report ended up not being true. Either case, I actually think this is brilliant marketing for the Nintendo Switch 2. It also does help that I like people like Paul Rudd. I tend to like the movies he's in and all of that stuff. So maybe I'm shilling for him. I don't know. But I do happen to like him and find him to be pretty funny. So anyways, this is just a really cute ad. As you can see, it's still going here. We're almost to the end. But, you know, I am excited for Mario Kart World. I do think it looks good. Don't know that I'll ever play it standing up and getting super serious like that with the fog machine, although I do have a fog machine. We're not going to turn it on right now because it tends to trigger my smoke alarm. But, you know, we do have a fog machine hanging around here. Now, what I want to actually dive into is our first indication of how well or how poorly Nintendo Switch 2 is selling worldwide. Now, we don't have exact sales data, unfortunately, and that makes sense. Technically, even pre-orders, sales aren't complete until they have the unit because they can still cancel their pre-orders, right? So none of this is complete sales data, but we do have some information from one country about how apparently Nintendo Switch 2 is doing historical numbers. And we're only talking about this because the source is the retailer themselves talking about it. So it's as direct as we can get besides Nintendo. And even Nintendo, sometimes they like to fluff things. No fluff here. This is just the retailer talking about Switch 2, how well it's selling, and what people are buying besides Switch 2. So it says, Frandroid spoke with Charlotte Massicolt, I'm probably butchering that name, head of gaming at FNAC, about the upcoming launch for the Switch 2. This is a French retailer. We discussed the risk of shortages, the price of the console, games, and its potential success. So we go down here and you get to the questions here. It says, you know, an incredible historical level of pre-orders. So you see the quote. The first few days, the first weekend, it was completely crazy. We saw in terms of console pre-orders, we reached historic level quite quickly. So we were lucky that FNAC was also open very quickly, especially for the Mario Pack, which is the Mario Kart World bundle, where we have an incredible level of pre-orders. Then they go on to say that price is not a barrier. So it says everyone was waiting for Mario Kart World. It looks pretty crazy, and so obviously it's the first game that gamers will play. Then they go on to say what surprised us the most is that we could create a topic on inventory are the accessories. The accessories are a hit, especially the game chat camera. The weight of the accessory compared to Nintendo's usual is much greater. This is where we see that we have more gamer community that will buy the entire ecosystem together. Now, in terms of it being out of stock, so we're pretty confident, and Nintendo is pretty confident about its allocations to the French market. Will there be some difficulties in the first few weeks? It's entirely possible. He says we want to be reassuring. We're rather optimistic. In any case, today, everyone who placed their pre-orders will be served. So there's going to be 10 stores also open at midnight. This should be a major year for Paris Game Week. We have high expectations and are starting to work extensively on a project with the organizer. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. I actually like this story a lot. Not just because it's positive about Switch 2, but it's showing that, even in France, things seem to be doing historic numbers. Now, this doesn't mean that they're sold out in France. Notice nowhere in here does it mention, oh, the system is sold out, or, oh, we're going to have a problem maintaining stock. In fact, they've been able to maintain stock, and maybe there's been a couple days here and there where maybe it was sold out, but it came back in stock pretty quickly for pre-orders, and they're pretty confident that all pre-orders are going to be fulfilled. There's not going to be any canceled pre-orders. So all of that's good news for people in the French community. Obviously, when we're talking about this, we got to have some perspective, and we get some of this perspective from Necro Felipe Lima. He's a Brazilian reporter, and as we go look over at his X account here, he says, France is a good barometer for Switch 2 excitement. Retailers in the territory expect to sell 300,000 units of the console on the first day. For comparison purposes, the PlayStation 5 sold 107,000, and the Switch sold 105,000. They're the current sales record holders in launch week. So basically PlayStation 5, number 1, Nintendo Switch, number 2. This is projecting to basically 3x those sales. Now, it's a good indicator, but, stock versus sales, 300K is the day one stock, so sales will probably be lower as there are no sign of shortages at the moment, but it can also be higher, like Switch 1, which got 100K allocated, but that was increased closer to launch to meet more demand. So it was 100K allocation. They added an extra 5,000 for launch. So what they're saying is there's no guarantee all 300,000 sell out for launch, but it is likely going to be more than 100,000. It is likely going to be a new record setter. As the retailer said, it is historic, which to me means it's going to become the record seller, even if it doesn't sell out. Now, we have some news about Madden 26, Madden NFL 26. We all know that this is coming to Nintendo Switch 2. They've already announced it. So we're going to go to this news over here at Deal Labs, or one of the reliable outlets out there. You got Bill Billicon here. We're translated the page because it's in a different language, I believe Spanish. But here's how we're going to go. We're going to read this. We're exclusively revealing the release date for the next installment of the Madden NFL franchise, EA Sports Madden NFL 26. You also find details on different editions available. So let's get into this. So EA Sports has become accustomed to regular releases on PC and consoles. Okay, so let's get into the specifics on this. So as we go down, our information. Following recent investigations, we managed to obtain some information about the new installment of the Madden franchise. Unsurprisingly, it's going to be called EA Sports Madden NFL 26. We also claim that the game will be announced during this week, so it's going to be announced no later than the 25th, so that's a few days from now. This will be an opportunity to find out if Madden 26 will be available on the Nintendo Switch 2 simultaneously with the initial versions planned for PC and consoles. According to our information, the release date for the standard edition set is August 14th, 2025. Owners of the Deluxe Edition will get 3-day early access. EA Play members included in the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate will also be entitled to a 10-hour trial starting on August 11, 2025. It remains unclear if the game will be available on older gen consoles, but there you go. So we don't know if it's going to be on older gen. We do know Madden's going to be on Switch 2, but is it going to be the current version of Madden? Is it going to be a specialized version that's different? That's the news we're waiting on, and unfortunately that news isn't in there, but we do have the release date of August 14th with an announcement made this week, and hopefully that announcement is clarifying. Next up, look, how about some news on Hogwarts Legacy for Nintendo Switch 2? So remember there was all those reports that, hey, they ported the Switch 1 version over and then they just added things on top. Well, it looks like that's not exactly true. Looks like they ported the next gen, or I guess why don't we stop calling it next gen? It's been 5 years. Current gen consoles version over. So let's go ahead and look at this. It comes from a creator's voice, posted over on Universal Nintendo, but also officially on Nintendo's YouTube channel. And I figured we'd go over the summary here instead of watching the whole video because it's like 3-4 minutes long. But it says, Nintendo today released the first video in its creator voice interview series. This time, the creators of Avalanche software behind Hogwarts Legacy are interviewed, where some of the creation process and also gameplay elements, story, etc., present in the game are introduced. During the interview, it was confirmed the Nintendo Switch 2 version of Hogwarts Legacy is based on the modern versions of the game for current consoles like PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. The game will feature support for higher resolution, better frame rate performance, as well as improved textures, improved lighting and reflections, game chat support, improved motion controls, and mouse, and obviously, it's a fully open world. They don't have the loading zones like they did on Switch or on PlayStation 4. Improvements to menus and user interface take advantage of the larger screen and the system's portable mode have also been confirmed. They've also said, hey, you can actually navigate with touchscreen controls, which is really cool. Hogwarts Legacy is going to be released at launch of Nintendo Switch 2 on June 5th. So you already saw some of the footage from this thing. Obviously, it looks pretty damn good. Does it look as good as the PlayStation 5 version? Well, of course not. but it looks a hell of a lot better than what we had on Switch. So, anything that helps make things, I guess, show a little bit more of what Switch can do, I find to be pretty worthwhile. Now, today there was actually some really big news in the gaming sphere as a brand new remaster of Elder Scrolls Oblivion. So Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion ended up getting a remaster shadow drop today. It actually was getting leaked before today, but whatever. And no, Nintendo Switch 2 was not talked about, which makes a lot of sense, but does that mean it's not coming to Nintendo Switch 2? Well, we have a rumor coming from Extus, who sometimes is right, sometimes is wrong, and he says, to those of you asking, almost a week ago in a video I already announced for the exclusive, and they mean exclusive information from them, that Oblivion Remastered is coming to Nintendo Switch 2, and I know there is active work on it. So they're claiming, I already know. I know people working on this damn thing. It's happening. It's being made. Switch 2 doesn't come out till June 5th. This came out right now. Naturally, this would probably come out on June 5th or later. So again, that's just somebody out there who is somewhat reliable stating that they are going to be doing that. Now, we have some update on some lawsuits, and this isn't always the most exciting news for people, but I do think it's important when we're talking about the future of the video game industry. If you remember, there's been an issue with Nintendo Switch the entire generation because it was hacked on day one, and that is that every single Switch game has leaked like a week or two early, and people would be live streaming it. Well, Nintendo went after someone who I believe was doing it with Tears of the Kingdom, and that person's been evading all of the court summons and everything else. They've just been evading everything. So Nintendo has now issued a new filing where they're saying, look, this person clearly is not going to show up. So we are requesting a settlement of a specific amount. So let's get into this. So this is over on, Games Radar. In the latest piracy and emulation battle, Nintendo seeks $17,500 in damages from a streamer accused of broadcasting at least 10 unreleased Nintendo games. So this is quite interesting. So the lawsuit was first filed against Jesse Every Game Guru Keen in November of last year, but as spotted by Torrent Freak, Nintendo has now requested a default judgment after Keen evaded service and failed to respond to Nintendo's complaint. Furthermore, the company alleges, by his failure to respond, defendant has admitted the factual allegations in Nintendo's complaint, and the court must accept the complaint's well-pleaded allegations regarding liability as true. Now, previously, Nintendo alleged that starting as early as 2022, defendant has streamed unauthorized gameplay of at least 10 of Nintendo's leaked games before their publication, and more than 50 times in total. It was claimed that these included Mario Party The Thousand Year Door, The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, and Super Mario Party Jamboree. On top of that, Keen was accused of providing users links to circumvention software, like Nintendo Switch emulators, Nintendo's proprietary cryptographic keys. That's one thing Nintendo does own for sure. And then pirated ROM repositories. And by doing so, giving his viewers everything they need to pirate as many games as they wish. Well, Nintendo previously sought about $150,000 for each alleged violation of the Copyright Act, as well as a further $2,500 for each alleged violation of the Copyright Act's anti-circumvention and anti-trafficking provisions. It's now demanding less. Specifically, it's seeking an award of $10,000 for infringement of the Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, which the company calls particularly reasonable since Nintendo is electing to not seek damages for infringement of the other 9 works. And then on top of that, Nintendo also seeks a statutory damage award of $7,500 in regards to its circumvention and trafficking claims. That's $500 each for the 15 violations Nintendo alleges has happened, one for each of the 10 games alleged streamed by Keen at least once, and then the apparent distribution of 4 links to Nintendo Switch emulators, as well as one to prod.keys. As well as the total of $17,500 Nintendo demands, it seeks a permanent injunction to stop Keen from engaging in further violations of Nintendo's rights. Specifically, this would prevent the defendant from, among other things, streaming Nintendo's copyrighted works, and it would also require him to destroy all circumvention devices he owns. This request hasn't been granted at the time of writing, and it was first filed on Friday, April 18th, so we'll have to wait and see how the court responds. Obviously, the court hasn't responded yet. I have a feeling that the court will probably respond, especially because the person's evaded. He's evaded. Nintendo's tried to hey, let's talk about this. Let's get to court. Let's meet with the judge. Get lawyers together. The guy has been evading it. So when you're evading this stuff, courts tend to side with the people not evading the issue and actually pressing it. So, and Nintendo's not asking for an unreasonable amount. I mean, the courts could order that it's higher than that. They could also order that it's lower. And you might go, well, why is Nintendo going so much lower? So I don't know if this is true, but there are some rumblings out there that this person was planning to file bankruptcy to get out of all of this. Now, I don't know how well that would work, but when the fine is much lower at like $18,500, I'm not sure a bankruptcy claim is really going to work. Kind of feel like there could be some wage garnishments or forced to sell things to cover. Again, I obviously don't know the little particulars. This is a legal matter, but I just don't think a bankruptcy claim is going to do much help when it's actually so low. Nintendo's not going after you for millions. They're going after you for a amount that could actually be reasonably paid by somebody. Because look, in the end, Nintendo just wants to discourage this behavior in the future. They're not looking to ruin people's lives. They're looking to get people to stop pirating and streaming games before they come out. It's not hard to understand why Nintendo would be upset about that. Again, Nintendo also tends to go really hard after anyone who's pirating or streaming games through emulation. So, speaking of something Nintendo's also going after hard, you guys remember the Pokemon Terra leak? We have an update with that because Nintendo isn't happy. No surprise Nintendo isn't happy about the Terra leak. So, yeah, they're going after the leaker pretty hard. Here's the latest from Polygon. So Polygon has here, that Nintendo wants them to give up Discord details. So Nintendo is asking a California court to force Discord to give up the identity of the person behind last year's massive Pokemon data breach, known among the Pokemon community as the Terra Leak. It's called the Terra Leak because of just how much information was released online. The leaker claimed to have source code for the upcoming game Pokemon Legends EA, though they haven't released it, as well as next-generation Pokemon titles, builds of older games, and loads of concept art and lore documents. We already know this all to be true. We've covered the Terra Leak in the past. Now, Nintendo filed this request for a subpoena on April 18th in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California, per the documents obtained by Polygon, seeking the name, address, phone number, and email address of the leaker. The company alleged in a declaration accompanying the subpoena request that Discord user named Game Freakout posted the confidential materials not released to the public to a Discord server called FreakLeak. From that Discord, the leaked materials spread far and wide. Nintendo attempted to take down the materials with DMCA requests, but the internet persisted, which, I mean, look, once it's online, right? You're not going to be able to do much about it at that point, but trying is better than not trying, especially for legal purposes when you're going to go after them. If you didn't try anything legally to take down the stuff, maybe your case wouldn't be as strong. So it actually was important Nintendo attempted to stop the leak, even though it didn't work. Now, the purpose of the subpoena is to obtain the identity of the Discord user Game Freakout, who posted infringement content, wrote James D. Berkeley, an attorney for Nintendo. Alongside the declaration, Nintendo included a partially redacted screenshot of the Discord server in which the user Game Freakout posted a file and told users to enjoy. So again, providing evidence that this is the user that is leaking information. The Pokemon leaks were published around October 12, 2024, but Game Freak announced in a statement on October 10th before the information was released that it had been hacked. In the statement, Game Freak said that the breach impacted employee information but did not confirm that confidential game information had been stolen. Subpoenas like this do not necessarily indicate a forthcoming lawsuit, though it does seem likely Nintendo would take the leaker to court. The company has done that before, specifically with Pokemon, when photos of Pokemon Sword and Shield strategy guide were distributed online. Given the materials that the leaker said they obtained, likely an early version of Legends EA, Nintendo will surely appreciate having the court's backing to prevent that data from leaking. So, again, Nintendo is going to go after this person. They're going to throw the book at him. Obviously, this doesn't mean that a lawsuit's happening. This is just an information thing. The information thing exists because, they need to let people know you hack our servers, you get information, you're going to get in trouble. It is actually against the law to do that kind of stuff. And, we can argue Nintendo's playing with fire a little bit because at least I don't have access to this Discord server, so I'm not sure if this was said exactly, but Pori Leaks is fairly reliable with this stuff, and they put out there, just so you guys know how ugly this can get, the Terra Leak hacker made an open threat in chat, so I'm assuming this is in the Discord chat, that he would dump everything if Nintendo came after him. And look, while Nintendo hasn't filed a lawsuit yet, so you can argue they haven't come after you yet, it's all because they're trying to get the information necessary to file the lawsuit, right? They need your name, they need your address, contact information, right? They need to have that stuff in order to correctly file this lawsuit against you. They can file it without it, but then it just becomes a much larger task. It's much easier to try to get that information first, then file the lawsuit. So basically the guy said, hey, if you do this, I will put everything out there. And you know what Nintendo's probably thinking? Go for it, bud. do it. Make things worse for yourself. That's really going to stop us from legally going after you and putting you in jail and getting a bunch of money. That's not going to, Nintendo's not afraid. And maybe the guy's bluffing and doesn't have any more to share, but even if the guy does that, let's say he leaks playable builds of ZA and Gen 10 Pokemon or whatever's going on, okay. Nintendo's not just going to be like, oh, because we're afraid of that getting out there, we're not going to pursue legal action. We're just going to say, it's okay to hack us if you leak some things, but not everything. What kind of precedent would that send? So I'm pretty confident Nintendo's going to go after this person and go after them pretty hard. And Discord's probably going to be forced. The courts are probably going to force Discord to give up that information so a proper suit can be filed. But look, we could get more interesting things coming from the Terra leak because of this. But also, Nintendo doesn't give a shit. Clearly, they don't care about that threat of, well, if Nintendo comes after me, I'll just drop everything. Like, okay, cool. So you have your 15 seconds of fame and you get to spend the next how many years in jail. Seems worth it. What are we doing? Why do people feel so cocky that like, oh, we could threaten Nintendo? Look, we can hate Nintendo for a lot of things. You can be mad at them about the pricing of the games, and we could talk about, how they do these anti-consumer practices, but some people out here are just acting like fools, man. You hack their servers. They're trying to find you so they could sue you, so you threaten to release more? Don't you think Nintendo at this point's already accepted that it's all going to be out there anyways? They're going to come after you either way. Just like the person who's trying to evade the authorities to not have to answer a summons or a letter about, streaming games illegally. Yeah. Nintendo ain't going to stop just because you're trying to avoid the situation. So, look, people just do dumb things on the internet. It is what it is. Sometimes I think people grow up in this world today, and I don't know because I didn't grow up in today's world. I grew up in yesterday's world, like the early days of the internet. I think people feel invincible. I think that's what's happening is people are growing up, and they think there's no consequences for their actions. They think they can just do anything. Mommy and daddy will bail me out, or I could just file bankruptcy and everything goes away. And it's just not that simple. It's not that simple. So don't believe me, just go ask that other Bowser character, Gary Bowser. His life is basically destroyed because of what he did and how hard Nintendo went after him. Stuff's going to keep happening. You're gonna F around with Nintendo, and you're going to find out quick that they ain't messing around. Some of their lawsuits seem a little frivolous, like the stuff where they're going after Pal World. I don't think that's going to actually go anywhere, but stuff like this is like easy slam dunks. You hacked Nintendo. You did illegally stream a game and pirate it ahead of time. These are easily provable things. So anyways, let me know what you think about this stuff down in the comments below. I am Nathaniel Rovajans from Nintendo Prime, and as always, I'll catch you in the next video.